Your soulmate wants to tell you something very urgent because what happened last night made them. Something slipped out of the silence last night, and by the time the sun came up, the person who has been carrying your name in their heart realized they couldn't keep pretending everything was the same. It wasn't a dramatic scene. There were no flashing lights or impossible miracles. Just one quiet evening, one unexpected conversation, one memory that refused to stay buried. And now they feel an overwhelming need to tell you something before another day passes. Stay close, because the smallest detail from last night became the beginning of a completely different story. Picture someone sitting alone long after everyone else has gone to bed. Their phone lights up the room, then goes dark again. They unlock it, scroll for a moment, stop on something connected to you, and suddenly nothing else seems important anymore. Maybe it was an old message. Maybe it was a forgotten photograph. Maybe it was a sentence they once ignored that suddenly carried an entirely different meaning. Their expression changes. The confidence they had been wearing for weeks quietly fades, replaced by the realization that they misunderstood more than they ever wanted to admit. They replay conversations in their mind, noticing tiny moments they had rushed past before. The silence becomes louder than any words could ever be. But here's the part almost nobody sees. Instead of running away from those feelings, they stay with them. That decision changes everything. There's still one piece of last night you haven't discovered, and it explains why this message suddenly feels so urgent. Hours continue passing, yet sleep never arrives. Outside, the world grows quieter while their thoughts become impossible to ignore. They imagine what they would say if you were standing right in front of them. Not the perfect speech they rehearsed before, but the honest version. The one without pride. The one without carefully chosen excuses. For the first time, they begin asking themselves questions instead of searching for answers. What if distance was never the real problem? What if fear kept speaking louder than truth? Every memory now connects like pieces of a puzzle finally finding the right place. They remember a smile they didn't appreciate enough, a goodbye that felt ordinary but wasn't, a moment when your silence said more than words ever could. Before you move on, there's another unexpected turn waiting just ahead, because the person you least expect to influence this story quietly enters the picture before sunrise. Morning doesn't bring relief. It brings clarity. As daylight fills the room, they realize they can't simply continue as if last night never happened. Someone close to them notices the difference immediately. "You seem distracted," they quietly say. Instead of denying it, your soulmate gives a small smile that doesn't quite hide what they're feeling. They admit they have been carrying something unfinished for far too long. Not regret alone, but hope. Hope that honesty might still arrive before it's too late. Hope that one sincere conversation could accomplish what months of silence never could. That's why this moment matters. They're no longer searching for the perfect timing, they're searching for the courage to finally speak. And just when they believe they've figured out exactly what they need to tell you, an unexpected discovery from the final moments of last night reshapes their message once again, and what they uncover is something you would never have guessed. The first thing they do after that realization isn't what anyone would expect. They don't rush into a message. They don't make an impulsive phone call. Instead, They stop and ask themselves one question that has been echoing through their mind since dawn: if I finally tell the truth, will they believe me? That single thought slows everything down. They replay every missed opportunity, every conversation that ended too soon, every moment they chose silence instead of honesty. Yet something inside them refuses to let fear make another decision. As they step outside into the cool morning air, familiar places suddenly feel different. The streets haven't changed, but they have. Every passing face reminds them how quickly time moves, and how easily meaningful words can remain unspoken forever. Then something unexpected happens. They notice a tiny detail connected to you, something so ordinary that anyone else would have ignored it completely, but to them it feels like the final confirmation they needed. In that instant, they stop questioning whether they should reach out and begin thinking about how to say everything without hiding behind carefully chosen words. Stay with this story, because the next few moments reveal why last night became impossible for them to forget. And if this journey is keeping you wondering what happens next, share your thoughts below, subscribe for more stories like this, and let others who enjoy heartfelt mysteries discover this channel too. The most surprising chapter is still waiting ahead. As the day quietly unfolds, they find themselves surrounded by people, yet emotionally somewhere else. Conversations continue around them, but their attention keeps drifting back to the memory that changed everything. They begin writing what they want to tell you, only to erase it seconds later. Every version feels incomplete because none of them carries the emotion they truly want you to understand. Then another memory rises unexpectedly. A small moment they had almost forgotten. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was simply the way you once looked at them, as if you believed in them even during a time when they struggled to believe in themselves. That forgotten glance becomes more powerful than any speech. Suddenly they realize the urgent message isn't about explaining the past. It's about revealing something they only understood after everything became quiet last night. They finally recognize that the strongest connections aren't built through perfect timing but through people who are willing to be completely honest when it matters most. Before you assume you already know what they're about to confess, wait just a little longer. One final piece still hasn't fallen into place, and without it, the entire picture remains incomplete. Late in the afternoon, they return to the place where everything first began to make sense. The atmosphere feels calm, almost cinematic, as sunlight stretches across the ground and every familiar detail seems to carry a different meaning than before. They close their eyes for just a moment and picture the conversation they've been postponing for far too long. This time, there are no rehearsed lines. No carefully crafted explanations. Only sincerity. They quietly admit to themselves that what happened last night didn't simply remind them of you. It changed the way they see the future altogether. They understand now that some opportunities don't disappear because people stop caring, they disappear because nobody finds the courage to speak before the moment slips away. That realization fills them with a determination they've never felt before. Their hand moves toward their phone once again, but just before they press the screen, something unexpected appears, one small discovery that completely changes the words they were about to send. The message is no longer just an explanation. It becomes something far deeper, something they never imagined they would have the courage to say, and the very first sentence is about to change everything. Just as their thumb hovers above the screen, another memory quietly rises to the surface, and it refuses to be ignored. It isn't the biggest moment you ever shared. In fact, most people would have forgotten it completely. It was a simple conversation, a brief laugh, a promise that seemed too ordinary to matter at the time. Yet now it carries more weight than anything else. They suddenly understand that the reason last night affected them so deeply wasn't because something new happened, it was because something old finally made sense. The missing piece had been hidden inside their own heart all along. They read the message they were about to send one last time, then slowly delete every word. Not because they changed their mind, but because they realized the truth deserves more than hurried sentences. It deserves honesty without filters. Stay with this moment, because the next decision they make reveals something even they never expected about themselves. The urgency isn't fading anymore. It's becoming impossible to ignore, and every passing minute only strengthens the feeling that waiting any longer could mean missing the chance they have been hoping for all this time. As evening approaches, the world around them keeps moving as if nothing extraordinary is happening, yet inside, everything has changed. They begin noticing little reminders of you everywhere. A familiar song drifts through a nearby cafe. Someone nearby laughs in a way that briefly reminds them of happier days. A passing conversation includes a phrase you used to say without thinking, and suddenly they stop walking altogether. It's almost as though life itself is gently placing one reminder after another in front of them, not to pressure them, but to make sure they don't ignore what their heart has already accepted. They smile quietly for the first time since the previous night, not because every problem has disappeared, but because uncertainty has finally been replaced with clarity. They no longer wonder whether reaching out is the right choice. The only question left is whether they can express everything before the moment slips away again. Yet just when they believe nothing else could surprise them, they discover one forgotten item tucked away where they least expected to find it. The instant they see it, their breathing slows, and the entire message they planned to share with you takes on a completely different meaning. There's still one truth hidden beneath the surface, and once it's revealed, nothing about this story will feel the same again. Night returns, almost exactly 24 hours after everything quietly began. The same darkness settles outside, but this time their heart feels lighter than it did before. They sit down, take a long breath, and finally stop searching for perfect words. Instead, they choose real ones. They understand now that the urgent message they have been carrying isn't built on fear, guilt, or regret. It's built on appreciation, an appreciation they didn't fully recognize until last night's unexpected awakening forced them to slow down and truly see what had always been in front of them. They realize that some people don't enter your life to create noise. They arrive to leave a quiet mark that continues growing long after the moment has passed. And you became exactly that for them. With renewed confidence, they unlock their phone once more, ready at last to tell you everything they have been holding back. But before the first word is sent, the screen lights up unexpectedly with something they never anticipated seeing. It isn't a coincidence. It isn't an interruption. It's a single unexpected moment that changes the direction of their message forever, and what appears on that screen is the reason they know they can't wait another day to tell you the truth. The screen glows with a notification they never expected to see, and for a few long seconds they simply stare at it without moving. Their heartbeat slows instead of racing, because something about this moment feels strangely familiar, as if life has quietly been guiding them here all along. It isn't the notification itself that changes everything, it's the feeling that arrives with it. Suddenly, every reason they once had for staying silent begins to lose its power. The doubts that seemed impossible to overcome only hours ago now feel smaller than the hope growing inside them. They whisper to themselves, "No more waiting." Those 3 words carry more courage than anything they've said in months. They realize that if they let another day pass, the message in their heart may never be spoken the way it deserves. So they begin typing again, not with rehearsed sentences, but with complete honesty. Every word comes naturally because it finally reflects what they truly feel instead of what they think they should say. Before this story reaches its next turning point, take a moment to share where you're watching from, leave a comment if this journey has touched you, and subscribe if you enjoy stories that unfold one meaningful moment at a time. What happens next isn't just another conversation, it becomes the beginning of something neither of you saw coming. The message grows longer than they planned. It starts with a simple greeting, but soon turns into something much deeper. They admit they spent too much time convincing themselves that silence was safer than vulnerability. They confess that last night forced them to face emotions they had been carefully avoiding. They explain how one forgotten memory, one quiet realization, and one unexpected discovery completely changed the way they see your connection. They don't ask for immediate answers. They don't expect everything to be perfect. Instead, they offer something far more valuable: sincerity. As they reread every sentence, they notice something remarkable. There are no excuses left. No hidden meanings. No uncertainty. For the first time, the message sounds exactly like the truth they have been trying to uncover. Just before pressing send, they pause one final time, not because they're afraid anymore, but because they want every word to carry the respect and care you deserve. Stay with this, because the very next moment reveals why this message was always meant to arrive exactly when it did. With one gentle tap, the message is finally sent. The room becomes completely still. Outside, the evening breeze moves softly through the trees while distant lights begin appearing across the neighborhood. Nothing dramatic happens immediately, yet everything feels different. The waiting no longer feels heavy because the truth is no longer trapped inside them. Minutes pass, and they quietly place the phone beside them, accepting whatever comes next. Then, just when they begin looking out the window, the screen lights up once more. This time it isn't just a notification, it carries a response they never allowed themselves to imagine. Their eyes widen, a quiet smile slowly appears, and for the first time since last night they feel a deep sense of peace. But the words they read aren't the biggest surprise. Hidden within that reply is one unexpected invitation, one heartfelt sentence that changes the future of this story in a way neither of you could have predicted, and that single sentence is about to open a brand new chapter that neither heart is ready to forget. The invitation is only one sentence long, yet it carries more emotion than pages of carefully written letters ever could. They read it once, then again, making sure they haven't misunderstood a single word. A quiet smile spreads across their face because, for the first time in what feels like forever, the distance between uncertainty and hope begins to disappear. They don't rush to answer immediately. Instead, They allow themselves to experience the moment they almost convinced themselves would never come. Every worry that kept them awake the previous night slowly gives way to a calm they haven't felt in months. They realize this wasn't simply about sending an urgent message. It was about finally creating the opportunity for two honest hearts to meet without fear, assumptions, or unfinished conversation standing between them. The evening air feels lighter, the world around them somehow brighter, and even the smallest sounds seem filled with possibility. But don't look away just yet, because one unexpected detail hidden inside that invitation reveals there has been a quiet plan unfolding much longer than either of you ever imagined. The following day arrives with a completely different energy. Instead of rehearsing explanations, they begin preparing to listen. That decision changes everything. They understand that the most meaningful conversations aren't built by speaking the loudest but by hearing the words that were left unsaid for far too long. As they make their way toward the place where this long-awaited meeting will happen, familiar streets suddenly carry new meaning. Every step reminds them of how close they came to letting fear win. Along the way, another surprise appears. Someone who knows both of you shares a simple observation without realizing its importance. You know, whenever your name came up, there was always a different expression on their face. Those words stop them for a moment. They don't ask for more details because they already understand enough. It confirms what last night first revealed. That beneath the silence, genuine feelings never truly disappeared. They were simply waiting for the right moment to rise to the surface. Stay with this story, because the next few minutes uncover a truth neither of you has spoken aloud before, and it changes the meaning of everything that came before it. As the meeting finally begins, there is no dramatic entrance and no perfect movie scene. There is simply a quiet pause as two people who have carried the same unanswered questions for far too long look at each other with fresh understanding. The first smile says more than any greeting could. The first few words are gentle, almost cautious, yet completely sincere. Then your soulmate takes a slow breath and shares the one truth they couldn't stop thinking about after everything that happened last night. I wasn't trying to find the perfect moment, they softly admit. I was trying to become the person brave enough to stop hiding from what my heart already knew. Those words settle between you with surprising warmth. Suddenly, the urgency that began this journey makes perfect sense. It was never about panic. It was about not allowing another meaningful opportunity to pass by in silence. And just as it seems every hidden feeling has finally found its voice, your soulmate reaches into their pocket, smiles with quiet confidence, and reveals one final surprise they have been carrying since the morning after that unforgettable night, a surprise that has the power to begin an entirely new chapter neither of you ever expected. The surprise isn't expensive, dramatic, or designed to impress anyone. It is something far more meaningful. Folded carefully in their hand is a small piece of paper they wrote after sunrise, only hours after everything changed. They smile, almost embarrassed, before handing it over. I needed to write this while the feelings were still real, they quietly admit. The words on that page aren't polished or perfect. They don't sound like something rehearsed. Instead, every sentence carries the honesty they had been missing for so long. They write about the moment they realized silence had become heavier than truth. They describe how one ordinary night unexpectedly became the turning point that helped them understand what truly mattered. Most importantly, they thank you, not because you solved every problem, but because your presence taught them something they couldn't learn anywhere else. Real connections don't grow stronger through flawless timing, they grow stronger through the courage to be genuine. As you finish reading, they don't immediately ask what you're thinking. They simply wait with quiet patience, understanding that some moments deserve space to breathe. There's still one final layer to this story, and it's the one that gives every moment from last night its deepest meaning. For a little while, neither of you speaks. The silence feels comfortable now.